Hello, everyone, and happy Thursday. Welcome to Something to Talk About Live. Just like every week, I, Jamie Hinkle, pronoun she and her, Learning and Inclusion Manager at PFLAG National, am going to bring Jean Marie in to host today's conversation, and I will be with you in the comment or chat section in whatever platform that you are on. So, hi, Jean Marie.
Hi, Jamie. I like the fact that we now have such familiarity that we don't even say who we are anymore. That was perfect.
Yeah, I forgot to introduce myself, and then I was like, I'll fix it. So.
But I have to ask, is that a feline guest that is sitting behind you?
It is. If folks haven't noticed, I am in a different space. I am back out in my office formally. I'm not working from inside the house anymore. And my cat has been distraught about that fact. So he's in the office with me. He has to physically see me while I'm working, and he is sleeping behind us.
It's exactly what cats do. It's perfect. Well, I welcome our first official feline guest. Jamie, we will probably see you again at some point. Thank you so much for starting things. Hey, everybody. My name is Jeanne Marie Nevada. My pronouns are she and her, or ella if you use Spanish, and I'm the Director of Learning and Inclusion at PFLAG National. Every single week for 3 years, we have gotten together to talk about issues related to equality and LGBTQ inclusion and culture and history. And this week is a very, very special week. So to get us started, let me tell you where we are. We are actually, as PFLAG, kicking off our 50th anniversary year, which is super exciting to celebrate all the accomplishments of this organization. So we are going to be spending a lot of time looking at our history, looking at our roots, our accomplishments, but we're also going to be spending even more time looking forward. So today is the first of one of those conversations that we are going to be having, and I'm really excited about our guests. So just for everyone who is joining us, you might notice things look a little different. We're going to talk about that today. If you want to join us to read this week's article that we have selected, it came from NPR, and it was entitled, How is PFLAG Keeping Up in 2022? And if you want to read today's article, you can check out straightforequality.org/STTA live. That is a new link. If you still use discussion series, you'll get there, but this is a kind of easy one. The article details a little bit about our history, but also more importantly, what we are doing right now. But as I said, we wanted to spend a little bit of time talking about where we have been. And for that, I am incredibly, incredibly excited, and even beyond that, truly honored to introduce and to welcome our two guests for the first part of our show today, who are actually the family of Jeanne Manford, PFLAG's founder. So with that, I would like to introduce Suzanne Swan, who is the daughter of Jeanne Manford, and Avril Swan, who is the granddaughter of our founder, Jeanne Manford. I am so excited to welcome you both to Something to Talk About Live. This is a real privilege that I am getting to meet both Suzanne Swan and Avril Swan, family of Jeanne and Morty Manford. We've spent so much time talking about PFLAG's history and where we have been. It is a real honor to actually get to speak to you. A little bit about your memories about the organization. And Suzanne, I want to start with you. So you were there when your parents were starting what would eventually become PFLAG after what Jeanne saw happening to your brother. As you look back on it, do you think that anyone had a sense of potentially how big what they were doing would ever become?
I think she'd be flabbergasted at that time. They were so happy to have 20 people come to the first meeting. And as it grew, she had hopes, but in the beginning, they knew that they could help a lot of people because people called them and cried on the phone and came to meetings and cried, and they knew that they could do it. But to what it has become, I'm sure they'd have been amazed.
So what I'm hearing from you is that I think it seems like the focus was just helping people who needed help at that moment. There was kind of no idea that this was going to become a big national organization at any point, was there?
I don't know that they expected it, but they wanted it. They traveled the country. They went on television and radio and talked to newspapers. They wanted people to understand that it was okay. They weren't religious people, but they talked about how God made us this way, however we are. And they wanted to appeal to everybody. They wanted people to know that their children were okay. And there's still so far to go.
Yes.
But even in this country, but internationally, and yet I'm sure they'd be thrilled. I don't know that what they could have expected. She got, for her 80th birthday, she got so many emails from people, and she was so thrilled that people remembered her and that people understood and that she'd helped these people. But I don't know that they expected it.
And I think that, that makes this story even better. One more question for you sort of on that. Was there a point at which you personally realized that your family had tapped into something very big, potentially even bigger than what anyone anticipated? So using your lens as you were watching this happen, was there a moment where you thought, this is significant?
It's been gradual. It's like you watching a child grow. It was organic, but when it really hit me was just this past year when my husband and I were in Europe, and we happened to be there in June, and we stumbled upon a couple of the Freedom Day marches. And these were all young people, and they had no idea. People asked me, why are you here? I was taking pictures. Why are you filming? Their parents weren't there, but she helped them. And that really struck me as to how much it meant to so many people that they didn't even know. Yeah. It's like the women's movement. People don't understand where it came from, but that's great because it's natural to them.
It is. And I think that's what makes it also such an interesting story, that I don't think anyone set out to create, I'm going to do this organization, it's going to be here in 50 years, people are going to be saying my name. I just never got that sense. Avril, could you tell us a little bit of what your memories of your grandmother, your uncle, and what even some of this time looks like? I know I've actually seen photos of you as a little girl at some of the Pride marches, which is just such a neat thing to say. What was it like? And as you were in those moments, did you have a sense of how big what was happening was? Or was it just your grandma?
So it was my grandma and my grandfather and my uncle. And it was never about, how big it was going to be. It was always about helping people, just individuals, it was from individual to individual. It was, I think my grandmother was excited when, she was on the Today Show or the Phil Donahue Show, or, any of the other interviews she went on. She'd get a little bit like giddy about, about that. But it was never for her own promotion. Never. It was always centered around my uncle and, the community and, any individual parent who was having trouble that she could help. It was a really healthy, wonderful environment for a little person to grow up in. Because, I was constantly given the message that discrimination is wrong. Everybody should have the right to do whatever they can do and be who they want to be and love who they want to love. And it was just a time of lots of ideals. And, I just grew up with that. It was like Sesame Street, anything is possible. And, so it was a privilege. It was also scary sometimes because, my family was very passionate and, involved, but, we had a brick thrown through our window, and, neighbors didn't necessarily love what we were doing. And, when I heard about those things when I was little, that was kind of scary, but just to see the bravery of my grandparents, and to see that they would do anything for their child, it was inspiring, and I'm just so grateful for their work.
I love the fact that you said it was a little bit like Sesame Street. Like it was a complete immersion into this fully inclusive environment, into this
Right.
world that did not necessarily mirror the world that we all actually had to contend with. But what a lucky experience to have that.
Yeah.
So, looking back, it has now been 50 years. We are just beginning our 50th anniversary. I'd love to hear how you both feel about this. Do you feel that the organization, that the work that has happened, Suzanne, you talked about traveling and seeing other Pride celebrations. Do you feel that this has lived up to what your mom and your brother and your dad, were hoping to do? Do you think that we're there, acknowledging there's more work to go? And maybe Suzanne, can we start with you?
It certainly is. They wanted the world to know that people were allowed to love their children, even if they're different. And, I've quoted this a couple of times now. I think Morty was talking to a biographer, to Eric Marcus, and he pointed out that the homosexual community is the only one whose parents don't share their minority status. And I think that fact makes people more afraid. Mm-hmm. And they wanted the world to know that you don't need to be afraid, that your children are wonderful people. They are who you have always loved. And of course, they'd be thrilled that it happened. I don't know how much they expected. I mean, I'd love to see it in Islamic countries, in the far right countries, in Europe, in Africa, where you're allowed to kill people who you don't agree with. There's a long, long way to go. But I know that this is what they were working for. This is what they wanted.
Thank you. Avril, what about you?
Oh, well, I mean, this is definitely what they wanted. It's hard to answer that question. The question is, would they be surprised, or, yeah, my grandmother was always surprised, when she heard of something else. She would always come back to, I never expected this. I mean, she would say that. Yeah, they'd be delighted. And they would think there's, of course, still more work to do. But they would be proud.
Thank you. I just want to thank you both for giving us a little bit of your time. It's a real honor to connect with both of you. As a child of PFLAG parents, I too owe a debt of gratitude to your family. So thank you for the role that your family has played. I think in our movement's history and the history of so many of us as individuals, lives changed because of what started in your living room with a conversation, probably. So Suzanne, Avril, thank you so much for joining us today. And hopefully we'll have you back again to talk about even more of our historic milestones. But as we kick off the 50th, I can't think of a better duo to speak with. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you so much.
Pleasure.
Well, that was exciting. It was a real treat. So as somebody who's studied history for a really long time, to get that much of a connection to the organization you love is really special. And you could just hear from that conversation how much has changed from our founding, from the original vision of what was going to happen, helping a few parents, to the language that we were using, homosexual community, to the LGBTQ community, to the way that we look. So you've probably already noticed, I'm going to probably point in the wrong direction. I already did. There we go. The other way, I can't point. We have new logos. You can see it on the or on the Something to Talk About Live. You probably noticed the colors are different. It's no longer the original PFLAG logo that many of you have come to know and sometimes love. So when I started at PFLAG back in 2005, I inherited PFLAG's logo that they had been using. And I remember thinking it would be really great if we could update this. But I'm really excited to talk about the fact that that finally happened. I had nothing to do with it. But to have that conversation, I want to introduce Liz Owen, PFLAG's Director of Communications, to talk a little bit about our brand. Liz Owen, you're my guest this time.
I know I never get to be the guest, and today I get to be the guest.
I think this is going to be great. And so I'm just going to, before we even start, tell people, if you haven't been to pflag.org or straightforequality.org yet, don't do it right now. Wait until Liz is done talking. But then as soon as she's done talking, you should totally go visit and check out all of the incredible awesomeness. So Liz, we all know rebranding isn't just about a logo, although thank you for giving us something beautiful. What was at the genesis of the idea to even rebrand PFLAG? Where did it come from?
Yeah, so, as you said, we had had the same look and feel for a very long time. I think 2004 was when the previous imaging and messaging and everything had been created. And, over time, it really became clear that it was really time to reunify. It was really time to lean into the strength and the passion and the power and the purpose of PFLAG. That was a whole lot of alliteration that was unintended, but it worked. But that really was how we came into this. And this process really started a year and a half ago. And it really, I appreciate the kind words from me, but this was a massive team effort. We worked with a wonderful agency. We worked with hundreds of chapter leaders across the country because they are the beating heart on the front lines of this organization. What they need and what they say matters, and how they approach PFLAG's work really matters in their community. It incorporated staff input, board of directors input, our regional directors, incredible volunteers across 13 regions of PFLAG who are deeply connected with the chapter network. We spoke with organizational partners. We also spoke with people who didn't necessarily know PFLAG, but we thought would want to know PFLAG if they only knew who PFLAG was and what PFLAG did. So it was this incredibly long and detailed process of bringing these voices together, hearing what they had to say, and certainly the core message, the core value to a one. Everyone said the word love, that when they think of PFLAG, it is about love. And that was a big part of this.
I actually really love that you mentioned that word because it was interesting as you were talking about all of these meetings and all of the things that happened over the course of a year and a half. I remember looking at notes, and when you would give updates, one of the very few things that everyone agreed on from day one was that word. And that is so rare in an organization to have such absolute unity in terms of the fact that that is where people's guts went.
Yeah. And, I will say the thing, our history, 50 years, PFLAG has really been a place where LGBTQ plus people and families and allies come together, driven by love, in pursuit of justice and affirmation. It started with a letter from Jeanne Manford to a New York paper. That letter led to her marching with her son. That march launched a meeting. Literally 9 months later, birthed the meeting, and then a movement of this unified force of LGBTQ plus people, families, and allies. And from LA to New York, from Gillette to Jackson, DC to Kansas City to KC, the people of PFLAG have been leading with love in this march for justice. And, since our earliest days, we have been this connection in our community, parents with resources, connecting allies with tools. And, I know that for some people, love is a very mushy word. I'm a parent, it's a very, it can be a very mushy thing, but the love that drives people to PFLAG and urges our actions is really a courageous love. It moves us to action, drives us to persist, especially when things get difficult. It uplifts, it empowers, it celebrates. Sometimes it gets angry, and it hugs. 50 years of hugs. So
50 years of hugs.
It's this really intentional unity among all of us. And that really is at the center of all of this.
It really is. So as you were going through this process, I mean, you really had insight into all of the conversations that were happening. Was there anything that really surprised you along the way that you learned, besides the fact that you eventually found a logo that I liked? I, the person who likes nothing, really liked the logo. So what else? There we go. There is our pretty logo with such awesome colors. So were there any surprises for you?
I don't know if it was a surprise, really. First, I think maybe one of the things that surprised me was that so many people were very excited about the process. You know, sometimes change can be hard, change can be scary. When you have an organization that isn't just an organization that's 50 years, but started as a grassroots movement that then became a volunteer-based, because we're a volunteer-based organization, you have people who've been around for a long time, and you know, you don't want to discard history. You don't want to discount the passionate feelings, but even the people who'd been around for a long time really felt like it's time to unify behind something new. And when you've had and I keep talking a lot about logo and vision, but it's so much more than that. It's our message and how it's evolved. It's, you know, it is other visuals as well. It's all of these opportunities. Everybody was really ready for it to happen. And I think that's key.
I think that's a really good point, because I remember you doing an unveil to some of our volunteer leaders. And I just remember the anticipation in the room. You could almost see it. I mean, people were just so excited and kind of flocking to screens to look up close at everything. And it made me happy to see that people were that engaged about this. So the kickoff of our new brand is just the first of a bunch of things that are happening in 2023. And kudos to me for knowing the year. What else is coming up this year, Liz Owen, that we should let people know about and that they should start watching for? Because I know we have some pretty close stuff.
Yep, there's a lot of stuff. So for anybody who's a member of PFLAG National, the PFLAG banner, which is our brand new newsletter, an update from the former PFLAG poll, that just hit mailboxes and will soon be live digitally as well. On March 3rd in New York City, we are celebrating the PFLAG 50th Gala, which we are very excited about, and we'll soon be announcing our special guests. We'll be honoring some wonderful folks there, so that's a big celebration. Obviously, Pride season is a huge time for PFLAG. PFLAG chapters everywhere participate in Pride, and this year we'll be showing up with this unified new look and feel, really empowering people to celebrate. And so when people see PFLAG, they know who we are, what we do, and what's behind the work that we do. So all of our chapters are going to be prepared for that with new banners and new materials that they've already started receiving in the mail, in these PFLAG Pride packs that they get every year from us. So, you know, that's, you know, I think March is one of the earliest Prides, actually. I think it's Tampa. And then it goes, of course, through November. I think in Palm Springs, where you are, right, is in November. But June, of course, is Pride Month, and that's a big month for us. And then in October, we have our national convention, which we're very excited about this year. What a great time to honor our roots, which quite honestly didn't begin in support. They really began in advocacy.
They very much did.
And that's what Jeanne demanded. You know, she said, I have an early letter of hers, and she said what she really envisioned was, and she said this in the letter to the New York Post, that her vision was that this would eventually be an organization that drove, she called it political, we call it legislative or advocacy or activism, but that was her vision for PFLAG, was this desire to move legislation forward. And that's a key piece of the work that we do at that convention.
Yeah, and I think it's going to be really exciting because we weren't able to be together for our last convention. It was done virtually, which was great that we came together. But to your point earlier, we did miss the PFLAG hugs. I'm not going to lie to you on that one. So that's going to be really fantastic. So everybody, please make sure that you're watching the PFLAG website for that. Now, one of the other things, and I want to come back to this because you mentioned all the other things that are happening, but I think that one of the neat things that happened with the rebranding is that you've also been able to elevate some of our really great programs, give them kind of a visual refresh. And I think we might have an image for that too. There they are. There are gorgeous new logos for all of PFLAG's key programs, and there'll be more of those coming out. Could you talk a little bit about why this also happened as part of it and what you're sort of hoping it's going to do in terms of what people are seeing and how they are perceiving PFLAG?
Absolutely. And if you can hold the logos up just for a second while I talk, because then I'll make sure not to miss something. So obviously something to talk about live. This program is a program of PFLAG. It's also part of our Straight for Equality program, which is a huge piece of our work that you, Jeanne Marie, lead in our Learning and Inclusion department. There's that program, new look and feel. Straight for Equality took the work that PFLAG had been doing with parents and families and then brought it into the ally space. And Jeanne Marie, you and your team do such incredible work with so many people across, hundreds of corporations and companies and just tons of work. Make sure you visit straightforequality.org to check out that work. But it was a great time to remind people that beyond our chapters, beyond support meetings, we have all of these, but we also have these great programs. PFLAG Academy Online is a virtual learning program. That program has been running for a number of years. We have some sessions which are available just to chapters and chapter leaders, but a number of them are really available wide into the public. And if you're a member of PFLAG National, that's available to you for free. Read with Love is a program we launched last year in response to all of the book bans that we saw happening across the country. It reminds people to buy books, donate books, and show up and really read with love and empower people and kids and families to access more inclusive, honest, and accurate information in their schools and in their libraries. PFLAG Connects is a program that we launched in response to the pandemic, but it has taken off. It is wildly successful. It's a virtual meeting program. Almost every one of our chapters has adopted this virtual meeting space, and many of them are continuing to do virtual meetings even as they return to in-person meetings. And then PFLAG Connects Communities is a part of the PFLAG Connects program. And it created a space for people from common backgrounds with common experiences, for a place for them to talk. So we have currently 4 meeting spaces. We have a regular meeting for Black and African American families, one for Latino families. We have one for Asian American, and Pacific Islander families. And we have another one now that we just launched for military families. And you can find those on our website as well. And then finally, PFLAG Gives Back is a program that was launched by your team, Jeanne Marie, and it's an opportunity for PFLAGers to get more deeply involved in their communities as volunteers. They volunteer for PFLAG, but so much of the work that they do is in partnership with other organizations, and it offers great ways for people to just give back locally.
I have to tell you, that's actually the first time I'm seeing the PFLAG Academy logo, and I'm so excited. It's so adorable. I love it so much. Of course, you're probably thinking I should have noticed this earlier, but
no,
we know I'm not on top of anything.
Surprise.
Good thing it went over well.
For real.
This is so exciting, Liz. And thanks to you and to your team and to all of the people, because I think you're right. This was very much a big team effort. Involving staff and our designers and our members and our leaders and our partners. I think this is great. So one last question for you as we get to the end of today's show. How do people stay informed? How do they find out about all of the amazing stuff that you are telling people about today?
Yes, well, absolutely. Please go visit pflag.org. Just a reminder, this new site launched 3 days ago. So as we always talk about leading with love at PFLAG, to be kind, to be caring. If you see something, please do tell us. But just remember, we have a lot of people who spent a very long time and are still working very hard on this effort. So if you're having a hard time finding something, know that we care, know that we're here to help you, but approach us with kindness and love, the way we will approach you, because obviously we want everybody to be able to find everything. But new websites are hard, things break, links miss. So just know we're still in a constant process on it. So just be kind.
But I think pflag.org and straightforequality.org are where to start. You can sign up for our newsletters there, get information pushed to you, and we are always, of course, on social media. Liz, thank you so much. This is the first time I think you were actually my guest and we weren't just hanging out for a minute and a half in the beginning. So thank you for being here and thank you for helping lead this project. It is an exciting way to kick off our new year.
It was total pleasure and my total honor. Thanks, Jeanne Marie.
I'll see you later, Liz. Well, that gets us to the end of another show. Please check out the website, especially after this show is over. And check out all of those resources. Like Liz said, if you find something that's not working, please definitely let us know. We are doing our best to address it. But if you've ever migrated a site, you know it's tricky. 50 years of links, people, 50 years. That brings us to the end of this week. Next week, we have another great show for you, another great conversation for you. If you want to get the article and the topic, we will have that up shortly, and that's at straightforequality.org/STTA live. We are going to continue to remind you to take yourself into your next week by following our 3 big guidelines, which are to remember to run fast, to laugh hard, and most of all, please be kind. Be safe out there. Take care of yourselves. Help us celebrate our 50th anniversary, and we will see you again next week on Something to Talk About Live. Bye, everybody.